Greetings and salutations, everyone. Welcome to English 201, American Lit to 1865 during the summer of 2021. So in case some of you guys don't know me, some of you already do. In case some of you don't, my name is Dr. Jeff Yeager. Just a little bit about myself. I have a bachelor's degree from Concord University in English and History, master's from Ohio University, and a doctorate in English from West Virginia University. And I did all of my graduate work on American literature. So of all the classes that I teach, this one is probably the biggest one in my wheelhouse as far as things that I've spent considerable hours, lots of pain and time researching. So I've taught this class a number of times. I've tweaked it a little bit compared to previous summers. So without further ado, we will go ahead and look at the syllabus, and I will also show you around our Blackboard page today in this video. So to take a look at the syllabus then, as you see here, all of my contact info is on here. So again, I'm Dr. Yeager. That's what they call me, and whenever you address me. Okay. Email jeff.yeager@southernwv.edu. I have, if you guys ever want to video chat with me, I also put information in for my FaceTime and Zoom and Skype. So I can be reached by FaceTime and Skype at jwyeager@mix.wvu.edu. If you ever do want to reach me that way, though, please let me know ahead of time so that I will be sitting there ready to expect your call. I have an office phone listed, 304-294-2008. But I'm also putting my cell phone down, 304-923-0445. I'm doing that because it's a summer class. It's pretty rare that I'll be in the office. So that's probably the way to get a hold of me if you have a question. As far as times that I will make myself available, I will make myself available from 2 to 6 weekday afternoons. So you can bet that'll be the times that I'm updating the course. That'll be the times I'm checking my email, yada, yada, yada. So the course description, rationale, the course surveys American literature from roughly 1492 to 1865. Throughout the course, you'll be exposed to a wide variety of literary genres, including journals and letters, sermons, captivity narratives, autobiographies, nature writing, slave narratives, poetry, the birth of a short story, and a novel. Throughout the course survey, we will practice critical thinking, close reading, good writing, and effective engagement with peers. So just a bit about that. Usually whenever you take American literature at the college or university level, it is always divided into 2 parts: everything before the Civil War, everything after the Civil War. The class before the Civil War is interesting. And I think in many ways it's more interesting than the more recent one. Even in the sense that a lot of the things that we're going to read, especially in the first couple of weeks of the class, isn't literature like you would expect it to be. Especially in the first couple of weeks, it's not all fiction. There's not much fiction here. There's even very little in the way of poetry in the first couple of weeks. The first couple of weeks, the class will resemble a history course in many ways. So you'll read lots of journals, diary entries, sermons. You're going to read a sermon, a very famous sermon, captivity narrative. That's a story explaining what happened when Native Americans kidnapped this lady's family. So there's lots of stuff, especially in these first couple of weeks. There's essays as well. But there's lots of stuff in this class that we normally might not think of as literature. But especially in the first couple of 100 years of Europeans being in America, um, like it took a long time to develop an American culture. So you guys kind of get a firsthand look as far as how our culture developed, in here. It also kind of it's also problematic because we mostly only get Europeans, European experiences, and mostly even just the British at that. There's not much in our books from the French or especially from the French who were in the Americas, especially in the Northern Americas. Then there's some stuff from the Spanish, but we're not going to really cover much of that in here. But you could also start this class with Native American creation stories. So that's another way to begin this class. I do not begin the class with those for the simple reason that Europeans are the ones who wrote them down. So you can kind of question the authenticity of them. So that's why I don't begin my class with those. You don't really get a lot of firsthand accounts from Native Americans or anything like that in here either, just because they didn't write stuff down. So you guys can know the old adage, history is written by the victors. Well, when the Native Americans didn't have a lot of things written down, really the only accounts that we have are from Europeans. So that's just a little bit about that. Even the question of where do you start this class? How do you start this class? I'm kind of taking it from the traditional, we'll start with Christopher Columbus's letters as he arrives in the West Indies. Okay. So, course is 100% online. So, basically, as we'll see in a second, there's going to be the class is going to be divided almost like we have 2 meetings a week. There's 2 check-ins. So on Tuesday of each week, that'll be the day that we have the major readings. So the longer readings, especially, not to say that the other readings that we're doing on Fridays aren't any less important, because they are. But the Tuesday readings are the longer readings. So what we will do on Tuesdays, you guys will have a choice in here. So I'm either giving you the choice to do a Zoom meeting on Tuesdays. So I would like, it really kills me not being able to discuss literature with people. I love discussing literature with people. So I'm giving you the chance to do Zoom meetings on Tuesdays for 20% of your grade. If you do them all, if you participate, it's an easy 20%. But if for some reason you might be working or you would prefer not to, as Bartleby the Scrivener would say, you will also have the choice to do a discussion board for the Tuesday meetings. But they will be a little longer than you might be used to make up for the Zoom meetings. But the Friday readings are the shorter readings. So on the Friday shorter readings, those will mostly be things, there's lots of poetry on Fridays. I'm going to post videos to help you through those. But all of you will do discussion forums on Fridays. Okay, so that's how the class is divided. 2 readings a week. The big ones are on Tuesdays, the small ones are on Fridays. All right, guys, so let me get back to this. Sorry for the random cut. I had to take care of something in mid-thought. So I was talking about the Tuesday and Friday readings. So the Friday readings will be on the discussion forums. Like I said, I'm going to post plenty of materials for you, lecture materials, and all that good stuff to help you get through the course. Not just for me, but I'm going to post materials from other people too. So every syllabus has these random goals. So just to talk you through some of these, in this class, after the class, you will be able to explore authors who are both hegemonic and outsider voices within a number of cultural, historical, and philosophical trends in early American lit, some of which include the transatlantic world, Puritan America, Native America, the Enlightenment, Transcendentalism, and abolitionism. So by hegemonic, we mean, what that word means is like the traditional voices. So, which is mostly dead white people, right? Lots of white males in this class. But we're also going to read it from a number of outsider voices as well. Like part of the goal of this class is to show the diversity of America. So we're going to read things like slave narratives. We're going to read lots of writings from the early women's rights movement in America. We're going to look at a whole lot of stuff. As I said a minute ago, we're going to read all kinds of different genres of writing. So that's pretty much what number 2 is. Just to look at number 5, comprehend symbolism, literary devices, and terminology specific to the literature discipline. So there's going to be another video to pair with this on the first day, and that is how to view literature critically, like a scholar. So please watch that video after this one. That'll give you a nice foundation for approaching the course. You'll do things like compare and contrast the themes between the author's works or of another author. Fix that typo. So all that's just things we have to put on the syllabus for assessment purposes. So what kind of work are we going to be doing in this class? So there's going to be 2 short papers. The short papers are about 3 or 4 pages, and those will be worth 15% each for a total of 30%. Now, I will be giving you 3 prompts, so there will be 3 papers assigned, but you only have to do 2 of the 3. If you want to do all 3, I will take the best 2 grades of the 3. But you only have to do 2 of them. The Friday discussions and peer responses are worth 10. The discussions on the major readings on Tuesday are worth 20. And as I said, you can either fulfill that by just simply meeting on Zoom and talking and participating, or you can meet that by doing discussion forums too. As we see here, if you do the discussion forums on Tuesdays, I'm going to expect a bit of a longer analysis since it's worth 20% and not 10. So about 700 to 1,000 words each week responding to the readings. So think about the discussion forum post like it's a mini paper in a way. I'll give you questions to help you work through that each week. But you can have the choice. You can either just meet on Zoom or do it that way. And then every week, what I will, if we do it on the discussion forums, every week I will give you points for both your response and I will give you points for how you respond to your peers. So since there's only a few people in the class, I think there's 6 at the moment, you should be able to respond to everybody who posts. So again, I'm kind of trying to incentivize you guys. It's probably easier to do it on Zoom okay, if you can make it. Midterm, we will have a midterm essay, which will be a little bit of a longer paper worth 20%. And then at the end of the term, rather than doing a final essay, we will have a final exam at the end of the term that's worth 20. And that will be cumulative. That will cover the whole semester's worth of readings. You guys, even though it's an online class, you guys will be able to do that on Blackboard on the last day of class. So you will be able to take that exam on the last day of class. So don't be scared about that, by the way. If you do all the readings, if you keep up, you'll do well on the exam. Plus, I will give a nice exam review before the test too. So don't stress about that. Other random policies, academic dishonesty and plagiarism. In a nutshell, don't plagiarize, okay? Don't copy somebody else's work and pass it off as your own. Sometimes students are tempted to, if you don't read, for instance, sometimes students are tempted to copy something you find on the internet and paste it to Blackboard. If you do that, that can constitute an automatic F in the course. And that, it doesn't really matter what type of assignment you do it on. It doesn't matter if you do it on one of the big papers or even like one of the small discussion posts. Whatever you do it on, it's serious. So don't copy someone else's work and pass it off as your own. If you do borrow a sentence or something from somebody, you have to cite them. So don't do that. That can constitute failing the class. I have had to do that in classes like this before. So just don't do it. Just write your own stuff and all will be well. Assignments. So I'm cracking down on deadlines. Okay, so when I say the Tuesday or the Friday deadlines, I expect you to adhere to those. Okay, I'm not going to be easy on late work this summer. It just gives me lots of headaches trying to keep up with it. With that said, though, if something comes up in your life and you contact me ahead of time, I will take that into consideration. But I'm not going to take late stuff after the fact. Okay. However, so as far as responding to your peers on the discussion boards, so if you do the Tuesday discussion boards, I'll give you till the Wednesday of the next day to do your responses. And as far as the Friday discussions, if you can take through the weekend to respond to your peers. So I will look for those responses to your peers the next day following the day that you have to post. And if you're late on assignments, I will take half a grade penalty each day unless I say otherwise. And then if something's over a week late, I'm not going to take it. Okay, that's my new policy this summer. As far as attendance goes, the way that attendance is measured in a class like this is meeting your deadlines. So if you do everything by Tuesdays and Fridays, that'll count as attendance. You will have one drop on both your Tuesday and Friday discussions. So you can exercise a drop. So let's say that you don't get around to reading Henry David Thoreau's Resistance to Civil Government in like week 5 or 6 on Friday. Well, you can not do that post, then it'll count towards your one drop. This giving timely feedback is something that I always struggle with as a teacher, but this is the only class that I'm teaching this summer, so I should have no problems getting things back. some of you guys who might have had me before know that in the normal semesters, I'm overloaded teaching too many classes. But this summer, I don't have that problem. So in general, I'm always going to try to get things back to you quick, at least within a week. Then I talked about how my office hours, I'm not really going to be in the office, so I'll be at home, but you can feel free to contact me. And I mentioned here that I make lots of YouTube videos. So if we do Zooms, I'll record those Zooms and post them. But if we don't end up doing Zooms, I'll make other stuff for you. Some of the stuff I've already made before for a previous course. And then if we look at our calendar, everything's mapped out for you, what you do. So on the Tuesdays, on the Fridays, you're supposed to read this stuff before the Tuesday or before the Friday. And then I will give you questions for both the Tuesdays and the Friday readings each week. And as I said, on the Tuesdays, if you can avoid doing the discussions if you do a Zoom. So we're covering a fair amount of stuff over 10 weeks. Like the reading load is a little heavier than it would be during the normal semester. That's because we're doing it over 10 weeks instead of 16 weeks. But we're going to spend 3 weeks on colonial America up through the Revolution. One of my favorite, actually just by about 2.5 weeks on colonial America. Week 3 is one of my favorite weeks in the class when we read Ben Franklin and Thomas Jefferson and Crev Core. Like I said, those first few weeks are a little tough just because it's not stuff that you're accustomed to reading in an English class. It'll feel a lot like a history class those first few weeks. But in week 4, we'll start reading the Transcendentalists. Then we'll work our way through the 2 big American poets, Walt Whitman and Emily Dickinson. We'll read Frederick Douglass's slave narrative. We'll have a week dedicated to this problem of American slavery in the 1800s. Then at the end of the class, we'll survey some of the very first American fiction. Washington Irving is typically associated as being one of the first great American prose fiction writers. So the short story wasn't invented until the 1800s. So pretty close to the end of the class, you'll get to say, oh, I'm finally reading stories now. So we will cover Irving. We'll spend the whole big class on Poe. We're going to read a story from a famous Southern writer called who was named William Gilmore Simms. That story is called The Grayling. Great horror story. So Simms isn't taught often in these kinds of classes just because he was a Southern writer before the Civil War, right? So he's kind of, lots of those people with pro-slavery sympathies have been kind of removed from the textbooks. He was a very good and popular writer, so I put him in here. The one novel we'll read in the class is The Scarlet Letter. So we'll read that in week 8. There will not be a Friday response that week since reading The Scarlet Letter is a little longer than reading short stories. Then in week 9, we'll read Melville and Rebecca Harding Davis. Rebecca Harding Davis is actually a West Virginia writer, by the way. She wrote about the story of life in the iron mills. It's about wheeling. Then week 10, we'll close it out with Civil War poems. Civil War poems in week 10. And final exam will be on the 30th. Friday the 30th will be when you will take that. So that is it for the syllabus. If you guys have any questions about any of that, just please let me know. I'll be happy to address them. Just a quick look now at our Blackboard page.